I want to give you a little help, a little study tip when you study the Bible, especially the New Testament. Well, for those of you who are serious Bible students, I don't think you'd be here if you weren't. Something that few Christian scholars are going to tell you about, and even fewer actually do to any great extent. That is to compare, follow me here, compare the writings of many New Testament verses with their Old Testament counterparts. Does that sound a little odd? See, what verses of the Old Testament might be in the New? Many. Remember, the New Testament consists at least 50% of Old Testament quotations. So the New Testament's even smaller, really, in a way, of original new studies than you would think. It's about half. A good study Bible will show you exactly which New Testament verses are simply Old Testament quotations. And they'll even tell you which book, chapter, and verses of the Old Testament are being brought forward into the New Testament section you're reading. The complete Jewish Bible does this to a degree, but not thoroughly. Don't just take mental note that a particular New Testament verse or paragraph is an Old Testament quotation. When you find one, stop what you're doing, and go look up that Old Testament passage in the Old Testament and read it. Mentally insert that Old Testament portion, just as it reads into the Old Testament, into the New. And then depending on your Bible version, more often than not, the supposed Old Testament quotation that you'll find in the New Testament won't actually be the same as you read in the parallel Old Testament passage. I want you to have that sink in for just a second. Why? If the translator fully recognizes this, what's being said is merely a direct quote by the New Testament author of an Old Testament scripture passage, why don't the words match exactly? Often it's because the Old Testament is being translated from Hebrew documents into English, and the New Testament is being translated from Greek documents into English. And the Greek meaning is often a couple degrees, just a little, off course from its Hebrew meaning. And it further, add in this further translation errors that you have from Greek to English and from Hebrew to English, and it complicates the issues even further. But frustratingly, there's more. You had to know that. Every Christian denomination today, of which there are at least 3,000, some set the number, or someone just told me recently, is 41,000, has a set of doctrines and a creed that each of them goes by. And in general, the Bible translators, either consciously or subconsciously, fastidiously adhere to the doctrines and the creed of one or another of these many denominations. So when the opportunity comes to translate a word, often when it is written in the original and it doesn't seem to match their preconceived and set in stone doctrines, they will substitute a word or a phrase that's out of context, but which keeps the meaning of the verse within the boundaries of their doctrinal beliefs that they hold so dear. So Bible translations often have somebody's agenda buried deep within them. This is why it's so necessary to use several versions to study from. Compare them. And better yet, if you can, get an understanding of the Hebrew language and also the culture. I recommend that everyone have a Hebrew Bible to correlate an English translation with, because even if you don't have any proficiency in Hebrew, you can pretty easily tell when two words in Hebrew are similar, because the little characters look the same, but might have two very distant English words that are used to translate that same Hebrew word. Why would that be? In that case, you need to be a little suspicious and do a thorough Hebrew word study to see exactly what that word meant to the Hebrew mind.